Lady from Utah, Miss Love.
Thank you so much. It's great to see you, Director Mulvaney, and I appreciate your candid questions and answers to those questions. I really appreciate. It's refreshing, to be quite frank. You know, as you know, on this committee, we get a lot of information. We know at least a week in advance when somebody's going to be coming in and when we're going to be doing these hearings. And we get a book that talks about, you know, what's been happening in your reports. And I kind of put the book aside and went to my district. And I spoke to some of the small banks in my district. I had a round table, went around because I knew I was going to have this meeting with you. Instead of asking some of the questions that may be in here, I literally gave them the ability to ask you these questions. So one of the issues that they wanted me to talk to you about is the fact that they are willing and interested in making small dollar loans. And I wanted to know, and they wanted to know, what your initiatives are in respect to small dollar loans and payday lending, and what the end result that you're hoping to achieve.
Congressman, I have to get you more detail on small dollar across the board. The first thing that comes to mind is that we're revisiting the payday rule, which is often a small dollar rule. But I'd have to get you more specifics on what we're doing across the board on small dollar, because that's more than just payday.
Right. So they, like I said, they were interested in making sure that they had the ability to do these small dollar loans.
Exactly,
and I think the more options, obviously, the better.
It's a shame that Ms. Velasquez is not here, because when I was on the Small Business Committee when I first got here, she and I were chair and ranking member of one of the subcommittees on small business, and actually did a field hearing on just that, micro lending to small business. So we know it's important. We know it's got bipartisan support, and to the extent we can help you folks make that more readily available, we look forward to doing that.
Okay, great. The other questions that they wanted me to ask you is this. How powerful are you?
Too powerful.
Too powerful. If someone had an issue, if a small bank, for instance, say the Bureau was going after a small bank for some issue.
Right.
Who do they go to for protection?
Nobody.
Who are you accountable to?
Nobody. I could make the decision to bring the lawsuit. I could make the decision not to bring the lawsuit. I could make the decision to...
If you go and send a handwritten note to ask the Federal Reserve for $700 million, are they required to give that to you?
Yes. On October 1st, they will.
Can they ask you questions about what that's needed?
I don't think so. Statute doesn't say that they can.
Do you have a statute that explains exactly how you are to spend, and if you are to spend, that $700 million?
Oh, it just says in the operation of the Bureau.
Here's the problem that we have, is I think the American people and members of Congress have false choices here. The problem that we have is that depending on who's in that seat, one side or the other is going to be frustrated, which means that the American public is going to be frustrated, which tells me that there's a problem with how this was set up. I mean, can you imagine if we actually had a bureau that worked well and worked well for people?
Look at it this way, Congresswoman. You don't get the same sense of frustration about the SEC or the FDIC or the FSOC. You might have some complaints about it, but it doesn't rise to the same level as this. We are not the same as the other financial regulators. We need to have a more down-the-middle approach so that we are taken seriously as regulators and we're not perceived as being the brainchild of one particular ideologue. And that's one of my biggest frustrations with this as an institution, is that we do not have the same credibility as those other regulators do, and I hope that we can work to get to that so that we're no longer perceived as that, which is either you love us or you hate us. We just want to be good bureaucrats and implement the law. That's what I'm hoping to do with the Bureau.
And let me tell you who else wants you to be that way too. The people who go to these small banks, the people that have lost their ability to be able to get the resources that they need for their communities. And I know this because I was the mayor of one of those small cities that are in, that these banks are in and that serve that community. And I have to say that these policies make this position more political than policy-oriented. And I think that that's the problem that we have. Both sides of the aisle will continue to be frustrated, and the American public will not be given the ability to be protected, actually be protected, if these statutes and these policies remain the same. So I'm hoping that we can at least do one thing, put this Bureau on appropriations, and I think that that will solve quite a few problems. I yield back.
Time of the gentlelady has expired.